Welcome everybody. Welcome back to Connor, Akshay, Joe and Ryan's super informative podcast. This week we are going to be talking about artists. That's a pretty broad topic, but we'll get into the specifics in a bit. So I'm joined here today, obviously, by Joe.
Good morning.
Akshay.
Hello.
Connor.
Good morning.
And me, but I guess you could have guessed that. So Joe, let's just lead us into this. What are we talking about today?
So we'll talk about artists and their role in society and when they're alive and after they're dead. We'll talk about things like who owns the rights to their art, their music, their the rights to their play or whatever it is. We'll also talk about how they're perceived in society, the way they're being treated by their fans, whether good, whether it's bad. But I think we want to start with sort of our personal connection to arts as a whole, because we do have a bit of a variety here. So I know Connor's probably most into it. So Connor, if you'd like to tell us about your experience with the arts.
Well, yeah, I think I'm the only one here that I know of, at least, that wants to, at least their career after graduating, wants to be around art. It's because basically after I graduate, I want to go and do photography. And in school so far, I take higher level visual arts. So
when you say you want to do photography, what do you want to like get big in your photography? Do you want do you want to publish photos, or do you want to do like wedding photography? Do you want to
I definitely want to go in a far more artistic route than a more commercial route, such as like taking photos of products or something. That is not what I'd like to do. And yeah, I think just things like I like the idea of like photographing on tour, as in going with a band and photographing their performances. I think that'd be sick, because then I get to travel the world and like get to see sick performances like for free.
Yeah, make sure it's a band you like though.
And get paid for it.
Yeah, that's true.
One Direction reunion.
Sure.
You're not intending to sort of be sort of super artistic with it and publish it and have it like appear in museums and so on and so forth. So
I think that'd be. I mean, I wouldn't be against that, but like, yeah, I do like the idea of fame, but that is, I guess that would be a goal for me, to like be recognized. But I guess that's a thing that is not directly in my head as of right now.
So we could actually talk about that as well, actually, is the difference between sort of visual artists' fame and musicians' fame, whereas visual artists are famous because of their work, whereas often visual artists like actors, actresses and music producers and musicians, they're called, I think, they're much more known for their personality. So we can talk about that when we get into their roles in society and so on and so forth. So Akshay, I would say you're probably the next most connected as the young boy drama student.
I think I have been connected a lot with art throughout my life, because I did do art I did art when I was 7 years old, and I continued it
visual arts.
Yeah, I did drawing, painting, and I took classes.
You were good.
Yeah, so
I've never seen that.
Some shade, man.
Have you never seen his drawings?
No, I've never seen it.
I'll show it later. But
I do know you're crazy creative though.
Yeah, and I started off by doing piano for like 2 years. I barely learned anything, but that was when I was like 5, 6 years old. Then I started doing drums, and I did drums for 4 or 5 years. And I started taking up guitar as a hobby, but I completely forgot everything about that. But my main passion right now is theater, and I'm wanting to also pursue theater and acting specifically when I do go to uni. So that is
you're taking HL theater now.
HL theater, yeah. I'm taking
so
that now.
Are you? Because you also want to take psychology in uni.
Yeah, I want to take psych.
But you want to do acting on the side as like a...
So but the thing with that is, it's interesting because psychology, since it is a human sciences, it still is categorized into the field of arts. in most
Is it?
Is
most
it?
schools.
I
Oh,
didn't
so
know
you get a
that.
Bachelor of Arts.
Yeah,
and you
it's a
go,
Bachelor of
I
Arts. So
see.
I could also do theatre on the side, but I'm
Mhm.
gonna have to research more about that because
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
haven't thought about it.
But
thoroughly.
you could do like auditions for like
Yeah,
plays.
for
and
sure.
stuff.
Yeah, for sure. But that's a little bit. In the
You are an
future.
incredible actor.
Thank
I
you
must
so
say,
much.
like it
This is
is
true.
Thank you.
crazy
Thank
watching.
you.
This
your
is
some of
true.
your plays.
Okay, stop.
I
Okay,
can,
stop.
I could see you going to
Okay,
like
okay,
proper
stop. Okay,
arts.
stop.
Blushing,
Stop. Stop.
isn't
Okay,
Genuinely.
okay, stop. Okay,
Okay,
go.
let's
incredible.
continue.
So Ryan would probably be the least connected to the arts.
What? What about you?
I mean, it's between me and you
I
for the
think-
least, but I play guitar, so.
Oh, I do photography as a hobby,
Oh damn!
but I
you
do
do
photography.
That is true.
and I think we're both pretty big fans of music, but we're not like into it,
True. That is
in,
true.
like
Yeah, yeah,
making
yeah,
our
yeah.
own or
Okay,
anything.
let's shake hands
We'll,
on that.
we'll share. We'll share.
share last
we'll
place.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
share
yeah.
last place.
But Joe has also been in some plays before.
Oh yes.
This is
Nice.
true. This is true.
And
So I did Chicago
You had
last year.
You had some good lines in Chicago.
Oh, yeah. I can't even remember them. But I do know I was cheating on my wife, and she found out, and then she killed me.
Okay.
Stellar performance.
So I think
Hell yeah.
so. We obviously all have some experience with arts. Like it varies, obviously, but we do. So I think we're gonna get into the first sort of topic point here, which is sort of it's to do with artists' death and who should be responsible for their intentions that they try and portray through their art
Yeah.
after they die.
So
Yeah.
what do you mean by intentions though? Like, are
Well-
you talking about like the rights to their art, or are you talking about like describing and talking about their art?
Well, basically, I think in the modern day, art, it's actually that, especially in the I guess with musicians, their art is not legally, at least, not necessarily their own. It's owned by a record label,
Mm-hmm.
and so basically, I think a prime example of artists' work being probably used in a what's the word? I guess would be deemed as an immoral way would be with the XXXTentacion, where basically after he died, his record label started releasing posthumous albums, and it's just they were noticeably dead down in quality compared to
Yeah.
his.
Oh, okay. So they were just using his name as a.
Yeah, and it's just it was to the point of just sort of it's because after he died, it obviously had brought a lot of attention,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they essentially profited off that, and so the albums are essentially they're not even songs; they're essentially just some recordings of like maybe a single thing
Yeah.
he's maybe sung in
Oh,
like a
okay.
studio
Yeah,
and
yeah,
basically
yeah.
just loop it, put a beat on it, done.
Yeah.
I think I listened to a couple of these songs before the podcast because I'm not really a big rap fan, but I think they could have gotten away with it if they released the introduction one, which isn't a song at all. It's just X talking about like what he wants in life, what he wants to do,
Yeah.
but then with all those other songs on that album and the newest Riot release, they all sound quite incomplete. Like the end of the Riot song, it's like it fits for most of it. It sounds like a draft he made, but then the end sort of feels like it was made for a slower beat.
Mm.
I don't know if anybody who's listening knows who knows the words or has listened to it a lot, but the end of it definitely sounds like it was made for a slower, different type of beat.
But you see, the thing with X is that it's more difficult than other situations because the person that gives the approval to make these albums is actually his mother. And so that's the thing, his mother gives the record labels the approval to do it. But the thing is that I remember reading an article about it, but basically some of the artists that feature on this posthumous XXXTentacion album.
Is that the name of the album?
No, posthumous is in like it was released after his death.
Right.
Actually, I didn't
No,
know that as well.
No, but basically it's because I think actually a prime example going a bit back is did you ever hear that Lil Peep and XXXTentacion song?
Yeah,
Falling Down.
Yeah.
Well, basically that song was released with two of them, and they were obviously very famous for. They were both sort of quite emo rappers, and both of them died.
And both originated from SoundCloud, so that's how
Yeah,
they did get their
and
start.
basically this song that was never in conception while they were alive was put together with the two of them on it, and it's a marketing ploy. It's essentially a marketing ploy. And the thing is, I remember reading Lil Peep hated XXXTentacion.
Really?
Yeah, he did not like him. That's why they never made a song together when he was alive. He did not like him, and so it's just.
So I
and
guess
there is a bit in this song where they like, it's like a bridge in the song, and then they get this audio clip of like X talking about how he wishes he spoke to Lil Peep when he was alive, and it's just like, it's literally just like trying to milk out this like.
Wait a minute. How can you say that?
No, this was Lil Peep. Lil Peep died. Lil Peep passed away first.
yeah, okay.
I see.
And it's just,
confused.
but it's just, it's like, it's literally, it's just milking out like, it's literally just milking out. Oh my god, like they both passed away. That's so sad.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh,
but then
sad.
when you see two artists feature on the same song, it kind of gives an implication that they like each other and that they work together and they spent a long time
that they
together
collaborate.
and
It was a collaboration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And doing that is almost immoral.
It was just
And
a collaboration between the two
and just-
producers who wanted to get
Yeah.
money.
Exactly.
And just going back to the,
using their name as
it's going back to the whole the music essentially being owned by sort of his mum and the label. It's then, I guess it's then you have that difficulty of, well, yes, you can criticize it. It's just what, I guess it's the extent to how much we could criticize it, because it is his mother.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that
Yeah,
was
it's
one of
like-
the points that I wanted to bring up. Like, who is responsible? Is it the record label? Because often it is, because they will sign a contract to say it is owned by the record label. The record label can do whatever they want with all the sounds that they record, which is similar to what happened to Elton John, which is why he went batshit crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what I was thinking earlier today. It was like, should it be family? Should it be? But then,
Well,
go on.
Well, I think you've got to look at the will if there's no contracts that have like said otherwise. Because I was thinking like, where do the drafts go? Like, obviously he's recorded something. He goes, you know, I don't want to use this. It doesn't fit with what I want to get across in this album. So I'm just going to put it in drafts and make a new one for this contract.
It's owned by the label.
Okay, so it's owned by the label. But then how moral or ethical is that to release something that he personally didn't see as
Good enough for
good
what
enough
he
for
wanted
what
to show.
for his
Name.
image or name or
And I think
intention.
I think this isn't to slate, I think, posthumous albums overall, because I think there are some posthumous works by artists that are, I would say, quite acclaimed. One of them, one
Bowie?
of them,
Didn't that happen with Bowie?
Black Star, yeah. But I think Black Star might be a little bit different in that he finished and released it days before his death.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought it was after.
I think isn't that the same with the Question Mark album from
no,
XXX?
that was released before he died.
Oh, but then
Yeah,
there
that
was
was his
a
last one, I
deluxe
remember.
edition where that I think that's what you're talking about, where it had like the tapes.
I remember he
That's-
had like an album that released like a couple weeks after he died or something.
Yeah, I think it was the Question Mark, the deluxe Question Mark, where it released all his like recordings and stuff.
But if you look at it from a business standpoint, from like the producers or their like
I mean, it
business,
works.
they paid, how much did they pay to get him to record like a set of songs for their label, and then they're sad that he's died and they're sympathetic to his family and everyone else. They did pay probably a truck ton of money.
Yeah, it's the idea that these songs probably wouldn't have come into fruition without the backing of the label, so it brings into that weird.
Exactly.
It's that line.
It's a lot of like, because like with labels and stuff, it's sort of like, what's the word? It's like kind of like it's a weird topic to talk about, because record labels in general, they take so much acclaim to these artists where it sometimes doesn't give them a voice to speak, even before or after their death. Do you get what I mean?
The label? Or
Yeah,
the
maybe
artist?
the label, because like I remember, I don't know if this relates, but like I remember with like Death Row Records being like affiliated with Tupac Shakur, and the other one with Biggie, the Notorious B.I.G. They had so much warfare and all this.
Can you bring some context?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't even know if this relates.
No,
I just wanted to talk
continue,
about them
continue.
because this is like so Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls were two of the biggest names in hip hop in the 90s. Okay, they were like the godfathers of hip hop, and they were actually this may have been after the death, but this is where they started coming into the rap game like they were stating their fame and stating their name. But the thing is, with Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur, both were located in both were located in New York, and they started like having like
a feud.
Yeah, they started like having like conflicts and stuff between the relationships because of
Just
recording some things.
Personal differences.
Yeah, just personal differences. So that's when Tupac removed. So basically, in New York, I think this is probably wrong, but I do think that Tupac and Biggie were signed to the same album. It was an album.
Same label.
The same like record label. It was with P Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever. Yeah. And the thing is with that, Tupac then moved to California where he created his own record label called Death Row Records. And from that, they started having fights, and this became like such an East Coast West Coast type of feud that they created. And the thing is, when they died, because no one knows how they died, we all know that.
Well, we know that they were both shot.
They died.
There's so many conspiracy theories on this.
Cuba.
Yeah, but the thing is, before and after they died, something just changed. Everyone started viewing them as somewhat of a like god figures in the rap game. But the thing is, with that, they may have released a few albums, but it wasn't to the extent that you see like maybe artists now, like with XXX. Like for Tupac, I know specifically for Tupac, they released only like 1 or 2 albums to sort of pay tribute to his success and maybe where he could have gone in his life. And I think it's the same with Biggie. So that sort of brings the question of how does the maybe time period, how does time period influence and affect?
But it's
this
because
movie?
Tupac was so influential in hip hop. They basically created an entire genre.
Yeah.
Whereas XXX, yes, kind of created mumble rap and that emo rap kind of.
Well, okay.
But it's and I do think that they will be a well-known household name even when we're older.
Yeah.
And they will be well known, but it will never be to the point where it's Biggie Smalls and Tupac because
they're the pioneers, right?
Yeah. I think the thing with Tupac and Biggie is that they were acclaimed before death. They were.
So does that take into influence?
I'd say. And I think that the thing about XXX is that his fame before death is nothing compared to his fame after death. I think with Tupac and Biggie, I think they were huge names, and it's just their deaths. Yes, they were tragic, but it immortalized them.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, we would not. I think I'd argue that we would not see. They would not be names of such high regard if they were still, which is messed up.
Yeah, it is. That is something like odd to say, but it is somewhat.
That's something that we always sort of see come out when an artist dies, like people who are fake fans or not fake fans, but like they weren't really like diehard fans.
So the same with Mac Miller as well.
Yeah, they weren't like diehard fans.
And with Lil Peep, because I think it's the same thing with
Yeah.
Lil Peep as well.
Good, yeah. They weren't like diehard fans before they died, but then afterwards everyone's like, oh my god, day one fan, it's such a loss. And obviously it is a loss, but I feel like almost making yourself up or making them up to be like this amazing artist sort of it almost encourages death amongst artists.
No,
nobody's obviously gonna do it, but it idolizes it.
No, it's because I read an article about. It was something that Lana Del Rey said in about 2014. Is that she was having an interview where she talks about sort of the reverence of these people that died young, such as Tupac and Kurt Cobain, and I think it's a joke. She's like, oh, I hope I die young, and it's just.
I think it's less that they die young, but more that they die in fame. So a really, really, really strange comparison here, but JFK got shot while he was in president. He's the only not historical US president that I remember, just because his name is now.
That is true, because that's like one of the most like quintessential things you may associate with the United States.
With United States history, exactly. It's like because he was famous when he died, it's similar thing with
when you die at
Michael
your
Jackson.
peak.
Exactly, they
Yeah.
died at their peak. David Bowie died less so, but he was
far less so. But
but he still when he died, everyone freaked out because he was still famous. He was still a household
yeah,
name.
I think it's, and the thing is that I think this sort of brings us into our next point about how, I guess we've sort of already gone into it, about how the artists' deaths, it almost increases their appreciation and exposure to their music.
Yeah.
And I guess the factors of that and basically it's the,
We've already talked about XX
Yeah.
and Pop Smoke and
We
Michael
haven't talked
Jackson a
about
little.
Pop Smoke.
and I think
We did with the.
No, we didn't.
We mentioned him, did we not?
And the thing with is that when they die young and in their peak, because I think it's, people are fascinated with that idea of what could have been, if you get what I mean, that there's so much more.
Yeah, I wait. So you think that like when they're starting to get their like kind of their feet into the rap game, or like not rap game, but in generalized like into that game.
In music, it's because I think it's, what's it? Oh god, I blanked out. Well, basically, okay, with it prompts the appreciation. A lot of the times, it's not. I think it almost transcends their music and more fascination with their life. It's because like with X, it's sort of people feel like I've seen like comments on like Instagram photos of X, and it's like people are like, I miss you. It's like people, it's insane.
It was crazy. Like
It's still
going.
People in our year did it. It's
No,
like, what? You
people
didn't
still-
know him. I don't understand.
No,
I somewhat get where they are coming from too.
No,
It's-
you
it's
couldn't
a
say
reverie.
you miss their
No.
music, but no, you miss someone that you know, someone that you had a personal
Okay,
connection
yeah.
to.
It's-
You never knew.
It's
this
like
guy,
almost
but
like
you
it's
know they
reverence.
existed.
It's like they revere them as
Yeah.
gods, and it's terrifying, honestly.
It's like it's probably coming from a place of sympathy, but it does go into reverence a little bit.
So what do you mean by you get them then? Obviously,
No,
'cause you
somewhat-
seem to be the only
Well,
person
no,
around the
yeah,
table.
it's like I sort of get where they're saying it's because that it's they're somewhat paying respects, but
Mhm.
also they could have had a deep impact on them
That's
personally.
what I just thought of actually.
Yeah, because
yeah.
there are like two dimensions to it, because they could have had a deep impact because
Because like we were talking about in the first point with the artist's intention,
Mm.
it's like that if they express their or portray their intention correctly, then it can impact people's lives for the better, and
yeah.
you can feel somewhat of a connection with them.
Because with X, I somewhat, to an extent, do understand, because with a lot of the things that he would talk about, maybe not when he first started rapping, but a little bit to maybe a year prior to his death,
During his peak when he was alive.
yeah, he would talk about a lot of like personal and emotional issues that could have
It
helped
did help a lot
with
of people, I do know
individuals
that,
to an extent, yeah, and I feel like that could have transcended across all other artists who have passed away.
And I think that actually plays a key bit in why he of all people became so revered after his death, is that his music it was so often focused on the topic of death and his own
Yeah,
personal
depression as well.
Yeah, it was really dark music.
It was
and I
same
think-
with Juice WRLD when he
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, I think,
Is he still alive?
no, he died.
no,
Oh.
you don't. Oh my god.
I don't follow them. I don't. Follow
Okay,
them.
okay.
I didn't
But-
know either.
God damn it. Okay, basically, it's just, it's, I guess it's the context that almost increases the interest in the music. It's that almost knowing that he died, it makes these harrowing songs so much more dark.
So if we listen, again, weird comparison, but Avicii, you listen to a lot of his songs, and when so Avicii like defined me and Connor's like year 8 class together. We would sit in Tech LS and listen to Avicii for an hour straight. It was rough.
LS.
Yeah, I know.
That's
Long
a
time,
throw
long
guy.
time.
Yeah, I
don't get
forgot
into it.
about that.
It doesn't matter.
But we'd listen to it for hours on end, and like I listen to it now, and that's all I think about. But there's also this sort of underlying thing of like, now that I'm older and like now that he's dead, I listen to the lyrics, and it's all about living young, like living well while you're still alive,
Yeah,
like
it's like,
really like experiencing stuff. And I think he died on tour, didn't he?
He committed suicide.
Yeah, he oh, I thought it was an OD.
No, he committed suicide.
Oh, okay.
That sucks, man.
Well, in which case it probably was.
Mm.
But he but like a lot of his songs talk about like living and then dying young.
It's like the nights.
The nights.
You interpret things in such a different context.
Yeah,
In
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's really sad to listen to, actually, even though his songs weren't dark.
Yeah, at the
I think-
time they come across as very upbeat, and it's that dark undertone that
I think
you see there now.
it's like it's the emotion that's sort of put into the song, not only from the artist, but it's also like what the listener gets out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And another one of these would be Da Vinci.
Mm-hmm.
How he was not a famous artist for most of his life. He sort of started going up in fame.
So we're talking about Leonardo
God.
da Vinci, the Renaissance
Oh,
artist,
God.
just to clarify.
Da Vinci.
Sorry.
God damn it.
If you guys know that meme,
Da Vinci?
oh my. But he was like going up in fame near the end of his life in the 1880s, and then
1880s.
yeah,
That was not the run of the Renaissance. Wait, was
That I don't think Leonardo da Vinci was the 1880s.
Okay, maybe I read the wrong date.
just
Doesn't
throughout the
matter.
Renaissance period when he was.
But near
The
his
Renaissance was like
death,
1600s.
you're a couple hundred years off.
bro. Do you know how many artists I read about like an hour ago? I got the wrong date. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
just continue.
But then after his death, obviously now he's one of the most famous artists in the world.
I
Yeah.
feel like maybe with the point of. What were you talking about just before?
Exaltation.
Yeah, okay, so maybe like with the perspective of Avicii, so what he represented throughout his art, that
Go on.
Continue.
the way that I feel like that can transcend into artists in the maybe just visual artists, like for example Van Gogh.
He's a good example.
Through his so Vincent Van Gogh, I don't know his time period or anything, but like Vincent Van Gogh is one of the most like notable visual artists that at least I know of
In history.
Yeah, and with the thing that
Everyone knows of Vincent van Gogh.
yeah, so with the thing that maybe Avicii represented,
Yeah.
which was happiness and maybe triumphing in sad times, for example.
Yeah.
I feel like that juxtaposes to the era in which Van Gogh lived in, and throughout his throughout his expression of art, a lot of it was very like one would look at it like maybe if he didn't die the way Van Gogh did, it would have changed your perspective of a lot of the art he produced. For example, when you look at maybe the Scream? The Scream and
The
a lot
Scream
of,
is not Van Gogh.
What?
No, the one in the church.
Starry
The-
Night.
No, but
yeah, maybe actually, yeah. Starry Night's also a good example, and a lot of the way that he would paint, it
Who's
looks.
the Scream then?
But no, but
I don't think the Scream is Van Gogh.
I
unless
think
I'm an
I think
idiot.
actually it's thinking of there's one Van Gogh painting which is in a church, and there's like a guy screaming in the window. There's somebody
no,
standing
it's
in
on
the
the
window.
pier.
No, there is.
No, yeah, it's on the. I think it may be the Scream, or it doesn't matter. It's just the way that he would paint and the way that he would use a lot of the of his expression. For example, is it Van Gogh? Oh, Edward.
No, it is
Oh,
not.
it's
I knew
not.
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No,
it's
but
not.
what I find.
But like in that sort of way, that is what sort of created somewhat of expressionism. That is a form of expressionist art.
Correct.
Yeah, and with this example that I'm bringing up, it shows that maybe before if Van Gogh maybe didn't die the way he did, we would have a different perspective of the art he was trying to produce.
Yeah.
Maybe because I went to the Van Gogh exhibit that was in Hong Kong.
Did you?
Yeah, I went to that one, and it shows like. Because I may have not known that much about Van Gogh, but when I look at it, it looks nice. It looks very like, it looks different and it looks pretty nice. But when my aunt was telling me about what Van Gogh was going through in this time, it was like, whoa.
Well, he cut his ear off in
Yeah.
confession. I think that's pretty.
And
pretty far
and
off.
that I think that with Van Gogh, I think it's the idea of him being more appreciated after death to the extreme,
Yeah.
as in like. No, Van Gogh was nobody. Like,
So that's highlighted.
Can
I know it's a bit.
Can I just interject? I was thinking of Van Gogh, not Vincent.
Da Vinci.
Not Da Vinci. His era was 1880s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Okay.
So
Continue.
that was highlighted in a Doctor Who episode of all things.
I've watched this.
It was genuinely one of the best Doctor Who episodes I've ever watched.
It
And
is.
That was so sad.
They take him. I'm presuming everyone knows what Doctor Who is, and they take him they take Van Gogh from where he lived to one of the exhibitions to see people like marveling at his artwork, and he had no idea that people would ever care about his art. I think a lot of it was just found in like random barns and like random houses and things. And like I know it's dramatized, but he started crying and crazy, and but like this guy was like thoroughly depressed for the majority of his adult life, and he was creating these incredible pieces of art, and he would never know of how appreciated he would be. But then that changes things, because if he did, would he create the same art?
So do you think?
Because a lot of art comes from a very, very dark place. It's similar with comedy, actually. A lot of comedy comes from people in a broken home, people who come from rough times.
Same thing with
who are very
rappers
poor.
as well.
Yeah, same with rappers. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of art, the majority of art, I might even say.
Every once in a while in the news, there'll be like Vincent van Gogh painting found in old home, and it will go for like $3 million.
Yeah.
But it was probably just.
It's probably just some
Just another
random
painting.
Tuesday night. Exactly.
Like another example of this would be Robert William Buss, who was a Victorian artist, and it kind of connects to the XXX, like having a draft and having people like finish it without his intention, because this painting called Dickens' Dream was found in some random house, and it was by him, but it was like half finished because he died whilst painting it, and they decided to leave it unfinished because obviously it's hard for another artist to finish a painting without doing it. So yeah, I don't know where I went with that.
So what you're trying to say is, would it be? Okay, let's have a little bit of a knowledge question, everyone.
Okay.
Oh no.
Would it be moral for someone to finish a piece of art, or is it which is more moral, to finish the piece of art in what they thought of the intention, the intentions were, or is it worse to publish something that's not completely finished?
I think it depends on the perspective you look at it, because from the artist's point of view, I think for me, if I was painting something and I died, I would not want someone to finish it.
Yeah.
I would want it.
Would you want it to be published?
No.
Okay.
I would not. I would not want it in the public eye, because it wasn't what I. It wasn't. It wasn't my. It wasn't, I guess, my vision of it. And so I think from that point of view, it is immoral to the artist. But then, from the standpoints of I guess the people, in that if it is celebrated in the way that a Van Gogh was, in that it becomes celebrated in that way, I believe it is. You could argue that it is moral in regards to society, in terms of what I guess. I don't have any specific examples, but I assume that the influence that Van Gogh's work has had on art today must be exponential.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's that weighing up of the things of just, it's the morality of Van Gogh the artist versus the benefits towards society and the art world.
So I have an example actually. So there was a theater practitioner, but he's not really a theater practitioner. His name's Franz Kafka. Okay, he is I think now.
What's a theater practitioner?
It's a person who practices theater. He's like a director.
Oh,
yeah, someone
like a
who
playwright.
produces scripts. A playwright. So
okay.
Franz, I should have said playwright. Franz Kafka was a playwright, and essentially, his work, he didn't want to publish any of his work because it was very sentimental to himself, and it was very personal to himself, and in that regard, he didn't want any of his work to be published. However, after he died. So I don't know if the specific person. I can basically, before he died, he asked his friend to burn everything.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
And his friend ignored it
and published it.
Yeah, and didn't they become like some of the most famous?
And
Yeah,
I
but
think
then it became.
he might be a novelist, not a playwright.
Novella. It's
novelist.
But it's called novella. Whatever. Okay. It's besides the point.
Actually, I take drama.
No, okay. No, but his work, I believe, has become one of like the biggest.
It's renowned.
Yeah, it's world renowned like pieces, and like a theater practitioner now, Steven Berkoff. he produced adaptations to his work. For example, that of Metamorphosis in the Penal Colony, as well as The Trial, and those have been so influential to the extent that Steven Berkoff, one of the world famous like theatrical practitioners and playwrights, considers Metamorphosis one of Franz Kafka's works, which to be one of the greatest plays of all time, because Metamorphosis tells the story of how Franz Kafka felt so isolated from society, and that does come from a place of of potentially depression and sadness.
So in all of this, the one question that I keep thinking is, at what point is an art piece finished? A piece of screenwriting, especially like something like a painting. Photograph's a bit different because it's so instant, although it can still be edited. A song, at what point is that finished? Because everything, especially in the arts, can always be edited. What's the name of this piece?
Dickens' Dream.
So we've just had a look at Dickens' Dream, and it could be arguable.
I can put a picture of it on the podcast.
Okay, yeah. So it could be arguable that looks finished.
I would say that's one of the other variables that sort of comes into play, because with XXX and that other playwright guy, they specifically like said, I don't want to publish these.
And the same with that.
I don't want to use them. Yeah. No.
Franz Kafka,
yeah.
Franz Kafka.
Yeah.
But this one, he was painting it whilst he was still alive. He was in progress, so you don't know if he wanted to publish it or not. So I think I'd probably be I was an artist.
I would be quite happy looking at that in an art museum and saying that's a finished piece.
And
of
the
art.
thing is, it shows you can see the message behind it. It's this single guy sitting in a room with a bunch of people sort of floating around. They're probably like him thinking about how lonely he is or something.
But I think the thing with this is that I think it's the unfinishedness of it that is almost the appeal.
Yeah.
Because it's not only, I think the context behind it also helps, but also it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating to see how it was being made, if you get what I mean. You can see his process, those intricate drawings,
it transcends artistic style from the time periods. It juxtaposes completely. So I feel like,
why? Because it's unfinished.
Because I feel I don't know when it was finished purely, but
it wasn't.
It wasn't finished.
He died before he finished it. So that's why
that's
what it looks like today.
Okay, I didn't get it. Never mind.
Sorry.
I thought that. Do you know that black part? I thought that someone else drew that.
No. So what happened?
So that's him planning.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
so that's all a
sketch.
sketch.
Oh,
and then he
okay,
started painting over the top of the sketch.
I get that.
So if somebody was to finish it, they wouldn't know what colors to put where.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think just to go on to the next thing, in terms of the modern day, I think a lot of what we see in terms of artists, that seems to be the cause of artists' deaths, or at least a factor in it, definitely. In the case of, I think, Kurt Cobain and Avicii, it's the spotlight. I guess it's the way in which it's, because I think with Avicii, that was one of the, I watched a documentary on Avicii, and essentially it's he made music because he wanted to make music. It was just a joy to him. And then when he was very socially, I believe he was very socially anxious, and he hated touring. He despised it, but he had to. It's because his label. It's because that's what his label wanted. Yeah, it's contractually obliged. It's just, and that is quite possibly what might have factored into why he committed suicide. Is that it's because I believe he just didn't enjoy music or life by the end of it. It's just being forced into this cycle again and again and again, and it's.
Did he?
People go insane on tour.
Did he release any music after he died?
He had one posthumous album.
So,
which was I believe mostly created by him, because actually
it was unfinished when he died.
It's just
which is weird because he did commit suicide. So again, was it finished?
That's a good point.
We don't know.
To answer your question, I think that it truly depends on what. Actually, but if they die, if they die, I was about to say that it truly depends on the artist's intentions But that's also very vague. But it really does depend on the artist's
We can
intentions.
never know, except for
Yeah, we would never be able to know. It's just that they would have to assume. They would have I feel like maybe the publications would have to assume that this is the direction that he may be going with. So that's why I may want to produce it even more.
And I think as a society we really, what's the word? I think if you're a celebrity, I think it's scary in that you're very vulnerable to these issues that can sometimes tragically lead to suicide. It's just that being put into that spotlight and the scrutiny, especially with, I think, some of the most key figures being sort of Taylor Swift. Because I remember reading, at the peak of Taylor Swift's popularity, she had to, I don't know if this story was real or not, but she had to hide in suitcases to get out of her hotel.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
I heard about this.
Yeah, and it's that then with that, and then she also she had a stalker that tried to break into her house. It's just this.
It's almost like
just
people don't see them as human.
They don't. It's the same with One Direction in that I watched sort of One Direction crazy fans because I was really bored, and it's just Harry Styles walking down the street, and then this girl just grabbing him and just holding on to him. That's he doesn't know her at all, and it's just that because they listen to his music, they feel that they know them and that they have the right to just have the right to just be to just grab them and be like, oh
and
my
people
god.
then criticize celebrities for getting angry.
Yeah.
It's so much
yeah.
to the point where it's there are
boundary.
boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so there's the song "Stand" by Eminem. That's a prime example of that. Although not really, it's slightly different because it's just letters. But the fact that he died or he went insane because Eminem wouldn't respond back, but he didn't because there was a point in the song where he talked about how Eminem said had to leave when Stan had waited 4 hours in the rain and the cold to
sign his
I didn't know
brother's
that's what it was about.
But I always think fair enough. Eminem was still in the rain and the cold as well. He had to go home at some point. He can't stay there the whole time, otherwise it just won't stop.
Yeah, Eminem. I think he explicitly said that this is a message to fans, and it's about a obsessed fan who dyes his hair to look like Eminem.
He's gonna name his daughter Bonnie.
Yeah, it's
I think
which is Eminem's daughter.
I saw an example of this. It was a YouTuber who was at their house, and there were kids lining up outside their house, and obviously that's your private space.
Mm-hmm.
If you make content for your fans, you don't want them showing up at your door and harassing you 24/7.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
It's like David Dobrik.
Yeah, I think it might have been a David Dobrik,
was.
and there was a mum outside with the kids,
Yeah.
so she'd obviously brought them there. So she's an adult; she should probably know that's wrong. But she said to the kids, "Don't feel obliged to leave or anything. You are the reason they're famous, so they have to do this for you.
No way.
They you deserve this from them."
Jesus.
And I don't get how you get that kind of mindset. Sure, if you're a fan, do that. But if you're a fan, you should respect.
That's
people.
the thing. If you're
as well.
if you're a real, I think if you're a fan of someone, that implies that you appreciate that not more than them in terms of an artist, but you've got to appreciate them as a human being, and then obviously respect the boundaries that they set.
I think that sort of dehumanization of artists and famous people in general is changing slightly with people like Lewis Capaldi. I love that guy. He's such a legend.
Yeah.
He's so
straight up.
No, he's so not fazed by showing his weird side, whereas normally, especially now with YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and artists having their own artists getting much more famous individually before they're signed up to record labels and contracts where they are then contractually obliged to
through things like SoundCloud
do formal things. Things I don't know how Lewis Capaldi got famous. I don't know how he released that one album.
I think he was a more traditional record label.
Oh, okay. but he's got he runs his own Instagram. He a lot of his music videos are just shot through his iPhone in his bathroom. he appears on like Lad Bible all the time and
I know what video.
I watch
it's
compilations
so
all the
funny.
time. And he's so funny, but he's just a normal guy, and even like old time famous people like Niall Horan is doing a similar thing now that he's an individual artist. Harry Styles to an extent, but Niall Horan is mates with Lewis Capaldi, and he's starting to become like he's becoming more human, in the fact that when he appears on things like on panel shows or on this or that, he does just talk like he's a normal person, which then not contradicts, but then almost reverses that old time, like, oh my god, look, it's that celebrity, and it's just, oh, hi Lewis, how are you?
But I feel like that's
type
because of media in general, and I feel like that sort of like glorifying, not glorifying, like you know, just like seeing them as like figures that aren't yourself. It's because of media. I feel like that's also because of maybe talk shows, for example. It's
so yeah, that's what I try to point out, is like that old school way of becoming famous is go through the label, jump through the hoops, appear here, appear there, say this, say that, say what you're supposed to say, and that's where that dehumanization comes from. Whereas now that things like Snapchat, things like Instagram, artists are running their own.
Some.
No, so new artists are running their own, putting themselves out there rather than the label putting the artist out.
That's what I was
the way that they want to.
That's what I was gonna say. In that, I think before, in sort of days before the internet was so prominent, in that, I think who became famous was very much up to the record label.
Absolutely,
they had full control of it. Whereas today, I think it's more the people, because things like someone like Post Malone. White Iverson was a song that like it became famous off SoundCloud, and then from that it's because like no offense to Post Malone, but when you look at Post Malone, you do not see super pop star. Like it's just
you see lunatic bum.
Yeah, and I'd say the same to an extent with Lewis Capaldi. I'd say
it's a similar deal where.
And I think that is what is so endearing about Lewis Capaldi, is that Lewis Capaldi just looks like a regular dude and acts like it.
I think one of the best like celebrities I've seen deal with this is probably Billie Eilish.
Oh yeah, so Billie Eilish. So all three of the artists that we've described, Post Malone, Billie Eilish, and Lewis Capaldi,
all became.
Not only did they all become famous not off their own back, but sort of whatever, they became famous on their first through the internet. But they're all, the way that they act on camera is so just them being themselves, rather than them saying what the label wants them to say.
I think one of the main things that really makes or humanizes Billie Eilish, I guess, is the fact that she doesn't really let fans take pictures with her.
Yeah.
She just says like, if you're a real fan and you want to like talk to me or come up to me, just come and have a chat with me. Like have a conversation. Don't come and scream in my face and get me to sign stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you're gonna sell on eBay or something. Yeah. Another thing she offers is hugs.
Yeah,
I would love to get one.
Yeah, same.
No, but I think I think it's the idea that it's interesting that nowadays artists seem to have so much more of a I'm not saying that they can completely do whatever they want, because there's been many examples of artists being trapped in contracts, such as I think Lil Wayne is one of them. What was that album? The Carter 5. Like
how many Carters?
Okay, well, it was like 2 years ago, I think, and basically that was an album that was supposed to come out in 2013, but he got into a dispute with his label, who had the legal rights to the album. And so he was never able to release it until then.
This sucks.
Yeah, and it's just, I think there's other examples. Frank Ocean is, I like think of this, and I think this is like the greatest finesse in like all of music history. Basically, he had a contract with his label to release one more album, and obviously he'd only get a small percentage of the royalties. and he wanted more control over what he was able to release. So what he did was he made one album which is called Endless, and it's a 30-minute what's the word, instrumental. It's a 30-minute instrumental over a video of him building a staircase, and he released it on Apple Music.
Like a wood staircase?
Yeah, it's really weird, and so but basically that fulfilled his contract obligation of the one album, and so he was released from the contract. 2 days later, he releases his actual album, which is Blonde, gets full royalties for it, and just
that's quality.
And he releases it He released Endless exclusively on Apple Music. So Apple, no matter how good the album of him building a staircase is, he gets a huge bonus from releasing it exclusively to Apple, because Apple will pay him.
It's like with Netflix as well, because it's like with Netflix as well.
And so he gets extra cash, gets all the royalties to his actual album.
It's that bang.
Smart man, a smart man.
That is very, very clever. I think just at last point, that reminds me of the Elton John movie where he gets
locked in a contract.
And there's this whole personal. That's
he has a
very
personal
old
involvement
style.
with
He has a personal involvement with his manager, which then turns sour because of the contract and the money, and he ends up
Elton John.
Rocket Man.
Oh, there was like
no, it's
no,
detailing his life.
You've seen the movie, right?
No, I haven't, but I know about it. It's Taron Egerton plays.
Yeah, it's a very good movie. I think we need to start wrapping up though.
Yeah.
So today we've talked about our personal connection to art. We've then talked about,
I guess, how an artist's death affects the appreciation of the music, as well as, I guess, the morality of
musical art.
And who gets to own the art, and the morality of that, as well as, I guess, how artists are treated by the public, as well as the importance of an artist's intentions in releasing posthumous work.
And then we talked about artists who are alive now and their how society views them and the morality of that.
Just artists in society.
The ethics of that.
Yeah. So let us know what you thought of the podcast. We really do hope it was super informative last week. We had a couple complaints, So let us know in the comments what your favorite form of art is, and maybe some examples of that. Yeah?
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Da Vinci?
Da Vinci? Bear the platypus.